very disappointed you lost her. Find her.
What does it take to send a message to a wise ass?
I got the A-bomb, and it's primed and ready.
Hi guys, Louise Rowe here, and I'm technically on the set of TNT's new show, I Am the Night, and I'm with Chris Pine and Patty Jenkins. Guys, thanks for having me.
Thank you.
This show gripped me to the point where I had nightmares. I couldn't watch it on my own. It is so bone-chilling, and now we're in the actual house.
Yep.
For people who don't know, what's the premise?
Well, the premise of the show is about a young girl who was a, poor mixed race girl who grew up in Sparks, Nevada, who had these bright blue eyes, and everyone was always asking her why she had these bright blue eyes. And one day she started pushing to get the answers to what was going on, and ended up uncovering that her origin is a completely different thing than she had grown up thinking, and came to Los Angeles to figure out what her true parentage was, and stumbled into one of the most incredible, dark, mysterious stories in Los Angeles history, and ended up revealing a completely different point of view on the most famous crime in Los Angeles history, the Black Dahlia murder.
Which has never been solved.
Never,
Officially.
Exactly.
And Chris, you play Jay Singletary, who is such a complex, damaged, fascinating character, but very funny. And I feel like the minute you meet him, you're rooting for him, even though he does the most absurd, stupid things. And I loved the scene in the first episode where you're in the morgue. He's not supposed to be there. He decides to hide in the tray next to dead bodies. And instead of just freaking out, you burst out giggling. As a total non-actor, are moments like that spontaneous?
No, I was just talking to someone asked the same thing, and we shot that on a sound stage, and it was it was like the last shot of the day, I think, and it was just really me, Patty, and the camera guys or whatever, and I was doing the scene, and I was laughing, but it wasn't working. Sam had written it like exactly how it was. He gets in there and he starts giggling and laughing or whatever. And really, and this goes to why I like working with Patty, is ultimately I just like to make her laugh. So as long as I'm hearing her laughing, she's got a pretty distinct laugh. I can tell whether or not I'm on the right track, and kind of the decibels of laughter, I can kind of figure where I'm going. And so I did it a couple times, and it was like a decibel of 3, and then I did another couple times, it was like 5, 6, and then finally I pushed it until I felt like I got it into the right place. But that is, that's Jay for me is the most beautiful tragic comic anti-hero an actor could ask for, and we watched at the premiere last night in New York. We were watching it, and I wanted to give big old Jay a hug, and he's just such
He does need a hug.
such a failure.
No more punches in the face. No more drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
It's how you hit as a character. You've had such amazing praise from critics, and as a duo, I think this is the beginning of so much. I hope it is. You've worked together 3 times now, and I know you sandwiched this in between to the Wonder Woman franchise, right? So how is it? How do you go from like one moment you're on that set in that mind, and then the next day it's switching gears so dramatically?
It's not, I'm not going to say that it's like nothing, because of course you have to completely change the story that you're telling and what your mindset is. But as far as how we work together and what that is, I think that that's often the case. I think even when you're doing Wonder Woman, you're spanning periods of time. And so you're having to say, wait a minute, what's the mood? Okay, cool. Oh yeah, this is suddenly, we're at the end of the film, suddenly we're at the beginning of the film. You're always having to recalibrate where you are and what you're doing. But it's not as challenging because Chris and I do have a good way of working together. So it wasn't as different as one would think. We're on the set of Wonder Woman and we're doing that and we're tackling this scene, and then the next, 6 months later we're tackling these scenes. And so it's strangely more continuity than you might guess.
Do you have your own language at this point, you guys? Are you just in sync?
Yeah, I mean, it's just,
I know. I can tell. No, I feel like we do, just insofar as there's a shorthand of when he hates something. I can tell. Like I can see when he's like doesn't, and I'm like, yeah.
What does he do?
he just drops out for a second, and then when he catches something that he's into, and he knows that about me too. So I think you just get the shorthand for like, I know, and I know that you hate that line, but blah 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 blah.
I think usually our problem is that like I get really excited when I get to make either myself laugh or Patty laugh, and sometimes that's not what the scene's about, and so she has to.
It's almost always just a good thing. But I always joke that when you're trying to do a very serious scene with no joke or no joy, Chris is always like, oh, okay, well. And then he does this amazing job. But the truth is, when you can find some little angle that's happening, it's like, ba-bang, Chris comes alive.
That's
I always
very
say
interesting.
He's a secret comedian. I'm like, you're actually a comedian. You happen to be accidentally a great dramatic actor as well. But he delights in the humor. So do I. We both delight in the humor.
You could see that, because I don't know who else could have made that character funny.
Yeah.
He was hilarious.
When I remember, so I was doing this film in Scotland where I had a big beard and I gained a lot of weight, and I flew back from Scotland. I shaved my beard, and then I showed up on 2 days later to shoot the first scene of Malibu with these fucking shorts that Patty had chosen for me. And I was like, oh my god! I mean, I hadn't seen the sun in 5 months, and it was so terrifying. But I mean, immediately I was like, well, God, if I just thought it was all ripped out of my mind, and then I figured,
So then
he
he starts pushing his stomach out, and then he and I, it's a totally new crew.
And
But
then
now he's
I
across
was-
the thing, pushing his stomach out, and I'm laughing harder and harder and harder because I can see what he's doing. He's like,
But I was like, okay, here.
yeah.
All right. I think maybe I found my
Let
fresh
it
way
go.
into Jane.
Did you gain weight on purpose, or is this just awful Scottish food?
No, it's the middle of winter in Scotland, and you're with a bunch of Scotsmen, so cue beer, cue fried food, cue all that.
They like a beer
And
over
then,
there.
so Glasgow to Malibu in 2 days was quite a trip. But,
You can't really tell the difference. What are
anyway.
you talking about?
Yeah.
The show really tackles identity, and Fauna Hodel, the lead actress, is trying to find hers, and Jay is trying to, in a way, redeem his. And you've been described as the greatest storyteller ever.
Thank you. Wow.
Yes, which I agree with. And how do you even begin on something like that?
Yeah, it's interesting. That was a huge part of the journey. When Fauna Hodel, the real Fauna Hodel, initially told me her life story, there was so much. It was so incredibly complicated, and the way that it stumbled into this incredible crime that we've never heard this point of view on, and all of these other incredible secrets was stunning. But I think that the thing that really ultimately drew me to it was someone's search for their identity, who at the beginning of the movie is hoping for something better, and who heads the other direction. They find out all of the very worst things that could possibly be true were true about her parentage. And instead of that defeating her, she's faced with a choice, and she becomes this other, this powerful character. And then all of these other people were involved in the story, but really identity and who they wanted to be was at the forefront. It's like it's a true Hollywood story insofar as everybody has come here looking for something, and you're going to find some version of it, and what are you going to do with it? So I think that was the story that ultimately we're really telling.
And is it true that it's over a decade that you wanted to make this?
Yeah, yes. So I tried initially in 2008 when I had first heard the story, and then I kind of put it on the back burner and was doing other things. But Fauna Hodel never gave up trying to get me to do it again, and I never stopped telling the story, even though I was always saying, listen, I'm not going to do this now, and I can't do this. The story would not leave me. So very rarely in life is there a real story that is that gripping, that it seizes your imagination.
Yeah.
So it's a no-brainer that if we're gonna tell stories in Hollywood, why not tell the greatest story you've ever heard?
I think any show or movie that makes you instantly Google stuff.
Yeah.
Which this did.
Yeah.
And she who watched it with me, we were like, oh my
Yeah.
God. And then we found out there's going to be a podcast that goes
Yeah.
along with it.
Yes.
I feel like, Making a Murderer actually changed the course of history.
Yeah.
I feel like you guys are going to unravel or uncover something through that and the podcast.
It could be, because I do think that when I stumbled into a lot of these crimes and a lot of this information, a lot of evidence is sitting right there. And so you never know. You never know.
Most of my followers are women, and they are finishing college or just starting their careers. You are a role model, Patty.
Thank
Do you have any advice for women trying to pursue their dreams in their careers?
Yes, my advice is tenacity and tuning out one's gender is extremely important. Just go into, even if there is sexism and even if there is gender, issues at hand, pretend that there weren't, because the truth is every single person faces something. There's a lot of people who face all kinds of challenges, so it's not going to do you any favors. Just go forward. But then, on the other hand, believe in your voice. Delight yourself, make yourself, because we're stepping into a world that for a long time has been defined by other kinds of things and other kinds of stories, but we all are only as great as our own prism, and the world wants to see that prism. So I think pursuing your passion, and then don't let, the fear of anything getting in your way, get caught up in your mind.
I got an anonymous phone call last night. And you will never guess who it's about.